Hi everyone, it's Dash of Dave here, and I'm back for another video, but this time I want to give you, I'm going to start a bit of a series of doing some how-to videos. So I'm going to start with one of my favourite things to do, which is decoupaging with a napkin. So, and because I wanted to make it accessible for as many people as possible, so I can't say for all, because if you have dexterity problems, then some things might be a bit more difficult, but I kind of wanted to make it a bit more accessible for those people who don't necessarily have all of the craft materials in the world, like a lot of crafters do. I will just say it is a slippery slope if you get into craft. You end up just buying everything eventually. Whether you use it or not, you might use it twice and then never use it again. But what I'm trying to get you to do is to be able to use things that you have around you. So, and I wanted to start with the decoupage thing, because that's one of the things that I think most people get asked about. I'm also very well aware that decoupaging onto furniture is quite a popular thing to do, but there doesn't seem to be very much to tell you how to decoupage onto just book pages or onto tags or playing cards or that sort of thing, which is the thing that I do most. Okay, and I kind of had to figure it out for myself, and I wanted to kind of give you a bit more of confidence to be able to not just figure it out, but go in with having a bit of confidence. If I do this is the kind of result that I'm going to get. So in this part of the video, you'll see that I'm now applying the napkins using the various different products. I forgot to add the Tim Holtz to the lineup here, but I do use it in this part of the video. I'm also writing on them to tell me which ones they are, and they were all left to dry. They all use the same application method of apply, put the napkin down, and then a coat over the top. So this is the results that I've got. So I tried 10 different methods, and what we've got is, let me just lay these out and I'll tell you. Now, a couple of them are more specialist. In fact, I'll put those to one side. So let's just lay these out and we'll talk about them in a second. So we have 8 pieces of card. So maybe if you do it like that, Dave, that'll look better. Okay, so what we have here is, this one is neat Mod Podge. Okay, so what I'm going to do is as I take the label off, I'm going to put it at the top so you can actually see the decoupaging. Okay, this one is Tim Holtz Distress Collage Medium. This one is with just clear PVA, just the very basic cheap stuff that you get inexpensive stuff that you get in the supermarket or a craft place, the children's style PVA. Then this is with Decoupage paper patch. This one is with Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue. This one is with Galleria heavy structure gel. I'll talk about that in a second. And then this one is with watered down Mod Podge. So the results are different, and I'll bring them closer to the camera for you in a second. So they vary. So for instance, things that are more water-based tend to be much better at dissolving the napkin into the background. Okay, so so you can see the difference between something like a stick glue. So this is the stick glue. So this is the Tesco stick glue, and this one here is the watered down Mod Podge. Let's just make sure the lid's on before I lay it down, Dave. Okay, so this is the watered down Mod Podge, and the difference is that this one, so if you look at this one here, you can see that the napkin has faded much more into the background. It's less white. They're all the same napkin, all done onto the same tag that I'd made with just layering up a few book pages. So you can see that it's faded in, so it blends in much nicer than if you use a stick glue, which is much more dry glue. And I did the same technique. So what I did was I applied it. So I applied the glue, then I laid the napkin on, and then I went over the top, over the surface with some more glue. Okay, so I did the same technique for everyone. And so with the stick glue, you can see that it hasn't melted it into the background like the watered down Mod Podge has. Okay, so this is actually my preferred method. Okay, is the watered down Mod Podge. It yields very similar results to, so that's the neat Mod Podge, and this is the watered down Mod Podge, and as you can see, it's got very similar results. In fact, I actually think I prefer the watered down because it's got more water into it. It does blend the napkin away a lot more, whereas this one has left a few more white patches on it, which is fine. You can absolutely, you know, ink over the top of it, and it would, you know, it would get rid of those. You know, you'd be able to blend it in a bit more. But there were some that I tried, because, you know, I know lots of people have lots of preferences, and I watch all sorts of different people do crafts. This is the Tim Holtz collage, distress collage medium. Okay, so this is one that's preferred by a lot of crafters, and actually I don't think those results are that dissimilar to watered down Mod Podge. In fact, I prefer the watered down Mod Podge. I get a bit more of a crinkle in the watered down Mod Podge, which gives me a bit more texture than the distressed collage medium. If you've ever used distressed collage medium, it's a lot thicker. So watered down Mod Podge is obviously very thin. It's like single cream. Okay, whereas the distressed collage medium, which if I just move some things out of the way and hopefully nothing crashes down in front of the camera. Let's see if I have it. Yeah, so this is the distressed collage medium, and if we open it, you can see that this is quite thick and, dare I say, gloopy compared to the watered down Mod Podge, which is very liquid. Okay, so, and also this is around the same price as a whole tub of this when it's not watered down. So you can make 2 lots of this watered down for the same price as you can make 1 of these. So I'm talking about cost effective. Okay, however, so that's the collage medium, and you know, it's great for the things that you want it to do. I'm not dissing any of these products. They're great for certain things, but from my personal perspective, I actually prefer the watered down Mod Podge. Okay, so this is the clear PVA glue. Now that really does do quite a good job. It doesn't melt the napkin into the background as much, but it does a decent job. It adheres it. You know, I'd never used it before. I'd never tried it. And you know, I wasn't sure what the results would be. It does a better job than the Tesco stick glue. You know, I use Tesco stick glue. I actually prefer Tesco stick glue to any other brand of stick glue. You know, there are brands out there, and I actually prefer it. But for this, not so good. I have used it in the past. In fact, when I first started doing decoupage, that is what I used, and then I progressed on to the watered down Mod Podge. The Decoupage, okay, which is this one here, that also does a very good job. The difference though is because it's I only have the glossy version, so because it's glossy, it just gives a bit of a shine that I'm not overjoyed about. So I still prefer the watered down Mod Podge. That is a matte though, so there is a difference. One's gloss, one's matte. Maybe I should buy some of the Decoupage in a matte finish and see what the results yield with that. and see if we could also water that down. You know, that's another thing. Although price wise there isn't really much difference in the price. So that's that. This is Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue, which I like. Again, it does have a shiny surface, but one of the things I have noticed with this is it never really quite dries, so it's always got a bit of a stickiness to it. So I'll pull that up to my mic so you can hear. So it's kind of a bit still, it remains a bit sticky, which, you know, you'd need to be careful what you put it against. Okay, so whereas the Decoupage, even though that's glossy, that doesn't have that same stickiness to it. So if you see what I mean, this has got a bit, because it's remains a little bit tacky, and I don't know why it does that, but because it remains a bit tacky, if you put it next to something else that was delicate and then you peeled it apart, and it might tear the surface of it off. So that was just trying an acrylic glue. That was just the cheapest version of acrylic glue I had available to hand. Okay, so it was just one of those things that I had. The same happens with this tackiness to Galleria heavy structure gel. Now this isn't technically a glue. It's actually meant for adding structure. So if you put it in a thick layer, it'll add undulations, it dries clear, etc. But obviously it's PVA based, so you can use it to adhere things. It's not your cheapest option. But again, this does have a bit of a tackiness to it, but not as much as the acrylic glue does. But it does still have a bit of a tacky texture to it. So you would just need to be careful of that. So like it's less the sound that you can hear on this, and more you can tell that the label doesn't come off it very easily. So it's just something to bear in mind. So if you have some structure gel and you think, I don't use that for whatever I want to use it for, then you could use it for this. Okay, but if you only had Tesco glue stick, then you could absolutely do it with Tesco glue stick or any other glue stick. Other glue sticks are very similar. Please don't tell them I said that. But the difference between the watered down Mod Podge and the neat Mod Podge, I prefer the watered down one, which actually makes it a lot more cost effective. So actually, from price wise, this is the cheapest. This is the next cheapest in use. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I choose it. I get great results for a very cost-effective price. So I'd rather spend my money on things that you're going to see than things that you're not really going to see. I will just say though, if you are going to knock things back, so even something like the Tesco glue, if you use, then the problem is you're going to be bringing in more. I'm trying to find ways to be cost effective. If you start using then a distress ink over the top of it, as you can see, if you go over it with a bit of a distress ink, it does knock it back and it does start to blend in because it turns the same colour as the page. So you can make it, but then you have to think, I'd have to buy the Tesco glue stick, and if I don't already have the distress ink, I would have to buy that and maybe something to apply it with. So it all starts adding cost to it. So if you're just starting out and you want to give it a try, absolutely give it a go with a glue stick. If you like the results but you think, I'd like to be able to get it a bit better, then try it with some Mod Podge. So get some Mod Podge. It's quite easily available these days. You can get it from Amazon, you can get it from in the UK, you can absolutely get it from Hobbycraft. I guess in the US you'd be able to buy it from Hobby Lobby, and wherever else you are in the world there will be a craft supply store that will have it. Okay, so like you can see here, by adding some colour you start to knock the whiteness back and it starts to blend in anyway. Okay, but you might not want to have that vintage feel to it, and you might just want to leave it like this, in which case I would suggest that you go for watered down Mod Podge. So let's just put these back together. Okay, so they're the results that you get. Just going to put these together so that we can, I have written on the back, but just in case, I like to, like to work with a safety net whenever possible. If anybody's ever seen me work, they'll know why. So always better if you've got somebody at the base of the ladder. Then when you lose all of your paper clips, so just take a couple of these off here, and then like we can get on with the rest of the. So this is how I keep my paper clips to stop them all going all over the place. Oh, there you go. There they are. I bet that one's. Oh no, it's not. I thought that was one was going to be under there. It's still sticky. Still got a tacky finish to it. So that's still acrylic, cosmic shimmer acrylic glue. So that's those. Then you move into the specialist sort of stuff, which again, these are Tim Holtz. So we're talking about these two. We've got Distress Collage Medium Crazing, and we've got Distress Collage Medium Vintage. Again, they've got the similar sort of textures to the Collage Medium, which I didn't get out for you last time, but you can see it's a lot more moussey based. It's a bit like when you're making meringue and you've whipped up your egg white and you kind of tentatively turn it over, because in theory it shouldn't fall out, but there's always that chance. So that's how thick that is. So you can tell the kind of texture that you're going to get from it, which means that you can apply too much. So you could not too much as in it will destroy the finish, but you could be wasting product when you don't need to. So that was the crackle is the same. So crackle is the same sort of thickness. So anybody that's never used it, it's probably a little bit thicker, the crackle, because it doesn't move as much. So whereas the Collage Medium kind of levels itself out, this doesn't. Okay, so the results are, this is the crackle, and this is the Tim Holtz Vintage Distressed Collage Medium Vintage, and this is the Distressed Collage Medium Crackle. So this is the Vintage. So this gives that same look as the way I did the Tesco glue and went over it with this. This just adds that same, because it's the same colour. It's the Vintage, which is the Vintage Photo. So the same colour as this. This is already added to that set. It's basically this with Vintage Photo already added to it. Okay, again, very thick. You can be tempted to use more than you need, and so it won't go as far. You can get some good results, but when you're applying the glue, it will stain wherever you apply the glue, not just where you lay the napkin. Okay, so you have less control over what you want to have in a vintage look. Okay, so that's the Tim Holtz. Okay, then this is the crackle. Okay, now the only thing I've done to this is when you apply crackle, you have to leave it, you have to apply it quite thick. Okay, so what I did was I put a little bit down to put the napkin on, and then when I applied over the top, I applied a much thicker layer for it to crackle. If you put a thin layer on, it won't crackle. Okay, so I put a thicker layer on, so it's a bit more dimensional. It does buckle this more because it's got a much thicker coating on it. And the only other thing I've done is I've then gone over the top of it with one of the Distress crayons to go kind of pick up the crackle thing. So if it's got a bit of a glittery, glistening effect, that's not from the crackle paste, that's from the Distress crayon that I've put over the top for you to be able to pick up the crackles. Okay, so that's the result that you get from a crackle. Now, you know, I like to use a crackle thing, but I only use it whenever I want a crackle finish. I don't use it for just applying a napkin. But I wanted to do it so that you either didn't have to, or at least you know the kind of result that you're going to get. So that's what I've done. Like I say, all of them in the same controlled way, which was an application of the product first, laying the napkin down over the top, and then an application of the same product over the top to give it, you know, the same finish. That was whether it was a craft glue or whatever. The craft glue was, sorry, the stick glue was an interesting thing, trying to put a solid glue over the top of a napkin that you've just glued down was a bit hair raising at times. Okay, so let's now like go through the technique of applying it. So this is a lap book that actually it was a lap book that Brian put together and donated to me for me to be able to use, and I decided to use it for this. What you'll need is something to put it onto. Now I like to decoupage onto book pages that are stuck to a background. That's all I did with those tags. I made the tags myself. I didn't buy them from anywhere, made them myself. I also like to do that onto, you've seen me, well, if you've ever watched my channel, for instance, you've seen me do it onto a, in fact, shall I use that one or shall I use, let's use the black one. I'm just using a black one because the napkin I'm going to use has got quite a bit of red in it already. So I'm going to decoupage onto these two, okay? So you're going to need something to decoupage onto. I would suggest that you don't go for just plain a piece of book page, because you'll find that it'll get oversaturated and it'll start to curl up. I would suggest you at least stick it to a piece of cardboard and allow that to dry first before you do this, okay? Or if you don't want to do it over a book page, you can do it onto a piece of chipboard, grey board as we call it. I think it's called chipboard in America and Canada. Chipboard, chipboard in the UK is more like MDF. So you know it all gets a bit complicated. So anyway, and then what you also need is you'll need a paintbrush, because obviously, well, a paintbrush or a glue brush or something, some way to actually apply the glue to the surface of whatever you want to do. You'll also need a napkin. Okay, now I find the best results come from napkins that are either the similar colour, so like ones that are printed onto a natural napkin. So when I say natural, they're the unbleached version of the paper, or they're on white. If you use coloured backgrounds, so it might be on a pink background or a blue background, don't be surprised if it doesn't blend in at all. You'll still see the line of where the blue or the pink ended. Okay. The next thing that is good to use, but you don't have to, is a water brush. Now this is a water brush that has a tip very similar to a marker pen, but you can get them that have tips very similar to a paintbrush. Entirely up to you what you use and your preference. Okay, let's move that out of the way. Okay, so and you'll also need some of your chosen glue, which, you know, I'm going to use watered down Mod Podge because, like I say, it's my preferred medium to use. Okay, so let's open this up first and we'll talk about things. Okay, so the water brush out of the way. Let's just put our substrates out of the way. I'll do it onto some grey board so you can see the results. Okay, so napkins. So like I say, your napkin will be much better if it's onto a white background, and it's good if you've got some spacing so that you can actually decide, for instance, I want this flower. It's much easier than for me to try and separate these two flowers. Okay, once you get more skilled at it, you can do whatever you want to do, but I'm giving you a bit of a heads up about what you're doing. This napkin, for instance, this came from IKEA. Okay, so you can find napkins lots of places, all the supermarkets, etc. I will just point out, if you go onto Etsy, you can also buy them from Etsy. They will say that they will be called Decoupage napkins, and I am telling you now, they are absolutely no different to the table napkins that you can buy almost anywhere. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to say is you need to separate your napkin. So it will say on the packet whether it's a 2-ply or a 3-ply. Okay, I believe this is a 3-ply, but we'll find that out in a minute. Okay, and you need to separate it, because what we're not going to do is we're not going to use this with with the same thickness. We want to get it down to the thinnest possible layer that we can. Okay, so way to do that is turn it over, and on the back in the corner get a bit of sellotape or a bit of sticky tape or a bit of washi tape if you can find the end of it actually. So get a piece of this, and what you're going to do is you're going to stick it to the end, to the corner, and then you're going to rip it off, and what you'll find is it will pull off a bit of the napkin, and you can then separate that, so you will get that layer off. You know, that layer, as you will see, is usually just plain white. Okay, doesn't have any kind of print on it. You can keep that for other projects. There are lots of things. There are things that I've done in previous videos that use those layers. Then what you want to do is you want to then say, well, you know, if you think the thickness of this will give you an idea as to whether this is the same thickness, it doesn't feel, it feels like this is a bit thicker. So that indicates to me that this might have another layer. It does. Okay, I should have looked at the packet, shouldn't I, really? And if it said 3-ply, I would have known it would have had 3 layers. So this then I can peel this apart. So be careful now. We want to keep the printed bit as intact as possible. It's not delicate, so it's not, but like it will rip, like that bit there. Okay, so just pull it apart. They're not actually glued together. It's just part of the process when they kind of get wet and they stick together naturally. So when you peel the top surface off, we'll come back to that in a second. Let's just put my sticky tape somewhere. What you'll see on this is this does have a little bit of a print. So what you get is you get the bleed through of this onto here. Now this is great for if you want to create a much more soft, like a hint of an image in the background, but you don't want it to overpower everything. It's great for laying over the top of something. You might want to put a picture down that might be a bit glossy. You want to knock it back but add a bit of texture or a bit of interest to it. So this is great. So I tend to keep my white elements of my napkin completely separate, my middle bits of napkin separate, and then my decorative bits separate too. So now we come to the napkin. Okay, so when we are looking at napkins, you're looking at little units. So you're looking at how could I incorporate it. So for instance, this would fit nicely onto this card here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that bit out. Now you could cut round this. The thing is, if you cut round it, you will get a straight edge that when you lay it onto another item, your eye is instantly drawn to the edge because it's a straight edge. You will always see that straight bit, okay, that hard line. So the best way to do it is either to tear it, okay, so you could then tear it out. So for instance, if I was tearing this leaf out, I could sit and tear around it, yeah, and keep going until I got round to the other bit of this leaf. Yeah, and I've torn it out. So that edge will blend in really nicely. But if you want a bit more control, this is where a water brush, it comes in handy. Okay, so this has just got water in it. Okay, I'm just going to get it going. It's a a pressure tip, so that's the thing that starts the water to flow. You don't want to flood it completely. So what you want to do is you just want to go, so don't try and go right up to the line, because you're not going to get that. You want to just go around it, and everywhere that you go, you follow the line. You just put a little bit of water down and then start pulling the napkin away. You can't go all the way around it and then pull the napkin off, but what you'll find is by the time you get something this size, by the time you get round to this end, this bit will have dried off. Okay, so try and separate it as you go. Okay, sometimes if you press like firmly down, it will pull it away anyway, but then you'll end up with like it all clumped up onto the tip of your water brush. Well, this is not technically a brush, it's a water pen. Okay, so you're just going around it. Again, like I say, don't try and get too close to the image. Okay, you kind of want like a bit of a bleed line. That's the thing that's going to melt into the background. You're roughly following the pattern of the path of the pattern. If your water brush starts to get a bit dry, just give it a bit of a pump. There you go. Try not to be too precious about it. Yeah, because you know, this is water. It's going to go the way it wants to. It might bleed over the surface of your rose or whatever it is that you're trying to get out, and you might tear a bit of the leaf off. If it happens, it happens. Don't worry about it. Okay, so going around, just keep following it around. Decide which elements you want to keep and which bits you don't want to keep. So I'm going to come round this bud, but I'm going to lose this bit here. So I'm just going to go over the top of here, trying to get a bit more water out. There we go. And then I'm just going to finish this off and try not to leave it with a straight line. Okay, there we go. So that's that bit out. Okay. So that's that bit. So actually what I'll do is, while I'm here, I might as well just get all the other bits out. So this one I'm going to put on here. Okay. I want something quite large to go on here. So I think what I'd like this element. So this bit here. So I'm going to lose the top of here, because I can, and I will. Okay, I'm going to go round this bit. I'm going to follow this bit round here. Okay. Down here. I want to keep this bit in. So I'm just going to go down here. So again, just tearing it out as I go. Follow that round. I'm not going to worry about the tip of that leaf. That's just going to be in it. Round here. Round this, and see how it goes right to this edge, but you've got a bleed, so this is hard, might be harder for you to see without me holding it up. Try and hold it up so you can see. So what you have here is this comes right to this very tip, but if you see, it's got a bleed where the pattern starts then repeating, and it would be another napkin printing there. So rather than catching that in, I'm going to style out, so get rid of the straight edge by styling it out a bit, and then just tearing the tip of that leaf off, which then, when I'll hold it up to the camera in a second, I'm going to lose this element. Come round to here, let's get rid of that bit. Okay, so that just gives us a bit of an idea. So that I'm going to lose this bit as well, so I'm going to come round here. Just a bit more water needed. Yeah. Going for a wiggly line. Like I say, a wiggly line is much better than a straight line. Come round to here. I'm going to stop for a minute and think, where do I want this to go? Do I want this element, or do I want it to come round here? I think I want to lose that bit. So I'm just going to put this line down here. I'm going to put a line going through that flower there. And then I'm going to join these sides, these edges up. Okay, so coming round again, like I say, just a bit more water might be required. There we go. I can tear that out. So that's my large bit, and that's going to go on the lap book that will be. Okay, and then what I want is something small that will go onto this. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this blue flower and have it over the edge. So a straight line on this edge is absolutely fine because it's going to butt up to a straight edge. Okay, so I'm going to go around here. I'm going to take that bit out, but I'm going to keep that leaf in. Like I say, just catch this edge so that I can just make it a bit more, a bit less of a straight edge, sorry. Around here, and lose this bit here. Okay, so I'll show you what I've got. I'll get rid of those bits. Those are the bits I'm not keeping. So this is the piece that I'm going to have that goes onto this. Okay, so that's the piece that I'm going to have on here. This is the piece that I'm going to have that goes onto here. Quite how I have it at the moment, I don't know, but that will fit nicely on there. And then this piece is the piece that I'm going to have on here, and again, placing at the moment, not quite sure. Okay, so I've got, so it's best if you're going to do a few pieces to get all the bit of the napkin out that you want to, otherwise you'll be coming back and to-ing and fro-ing, etc. You will have to leave these to dry, by the way, or use a heat gun, okay, but we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so what you'll then need to do is think about placing. Okay, so how do you want it to be? Well, I'm quite happy with that. Like I say, this straight edge will butt up nicely. If it had got a bleed edge where that's a repeat of another napkin where it's not been cut properly, then I would get rid of that edge and I'd have it overhanging. Okay, and then I would sand it off or whatever, but we'll talk about that in a second. So I'm going to have that like that. That's fine. So this rose, where do I want this? Do I want it like this? I think I actually liked it the way I had it, but what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to have it so it kind of just hangs off the edge, and we'll talk about how we can then get rid of the excess then. Yeah, so I'm going to have it something like that. And then this one, now I'm not sure about this one. This one, I think maybe I'll have it across this join. Not, it's not a join, Dave, it's a hinge. So across this hinge, like this, I think it'll look like nice like that. Or do I want it so that it hangs over this edge? Right, okay. Have a look. I want it like that. I quite like it like that actually, so it hangs over this edge. No, okay, going to go with the other way. Like this. Okay, but I'll come back to that in a second. What we'll do is we'll do these other two first. Okay, so what are you going to do? Okay, you are going to get your paste brush or your paint brush, or whatever you want to use. Please be aware if it dries on this brush, well, if it's wet it's fine, it'll wash out with water, but if it dries on this, you'll end up throwing the brush away because it's not gonna be good for anything else. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to paste a bit. Now what I like to do is I don't make any markings. I kind of look at it and think, right, okay, I know the shape of the glue, of where the glue's got to go, so I kind of get my brush wet, don't wipe too much off, and then think, okay, so the pattern goes roughly like this, and you put some down. Now something like this, what you'll find is something like this, because it's very porous and it's very dry, it doesn't have any coating on it, it instantly will suck the glue all in, and so you'll get dry areas. So I don't know whether you can see here, so this is still quite shiny, but this has kind of gone very dry looking, and that's simply because it's very porous surface that you're doing it onto, and also it's very thick, so it's sucking it all down. So put a little bit down, then put the next bit down. Now you want it to have a decent amount on the surface. You don't want it to be saturated though, so you don't need a slick of it. You just want enough of it. Okay, so the next thing to do is it's useful if you use a card sometimes, depending on your surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this down to this edge. I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to try and pull it taut, but don't pull too hard, because remember, once it gets wet, we've just used water brush and we've just peeled it apart. Like I say, once it gets wet, it gets very, wet, and therefore it will start falling apart, just like when you were wetting it before. And then once you've got it down, you want to go over the edges first and blend them in. And this is what I do. Other people do it differently, but I go round the edges first and then I go over the rest of the surface. But I don't press too hard. Remember, it's wet, it will pull apart. So what you want to do is you want to paste gently over it. You'll need the paste over it to kind of help it to blend in. If you think it's getting a little bit dry on the edges and the white bits that you need it to blend into, just re-wet your brush a little bit. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't go right, it is a napkin on a piece of cardboard. So that's that bit onto there. Okay, let's now do the card. Okay, now the reason I've got this is sometimes you might want to flatten it out with this. The one thing I would say about this is, because it has it doesn't have to be a Morrison's card, it could be anything, but if you're using any of these cards, if you start dragging this over here, you can drag it apart. You have to be confident that it's not going to fall apart. So like I say, with this one, I am going to put it over here, but I want it to kind of hang off the edges a little bit. Okay, and then we can talk about how we can then file that down. Okay, so I'm looking at, right, okay, that's roughly where I'm going to have my glue. You don't have to be bob on accurate. Now this has got a coating onto it, so it's not going to suck in the glue like the other surface did. Okay, so I'm going to put that there and lie my napkin onto this surface, and I'm going to gently just brush over the surface with my finger. But any places where it gets wet, I will stop brushing, because otherwise I'm going to pull it apart. You can pull it a little bit taut so you don't get too much of a crease in the surface, and just gently, it is the most gentle of touches that you're going to go over it with, and all you're doing is making sure that it adheres. If your fingers are at all sticky, do not do it, because you will just drag the whole napkin apart. Okay, so just going over it, just making that adhesion, so sticking all of these bits down so you don't get any air pockets. You can use this, like I say, but you have to be very gentle and just go over it and use it to smooth it. Don't drag. You're not, applying grout to tiles. Okay. Any bits where you think it's not got enough glue, just lift them gently and reapply them. And then, like I say, go over all of your edges. So blend out your edges first. Yeah, and over, there's still a little bit of glue on it, but I just want to add a little bit more. And the more glue you have on your brush, the less pressure you can apply. Otherwise you're going to drag the thing apart. Okay, so now I'm going to go over the surface of it. And remember that it's the application on the surface that helps it to blend into the background and helps it to become a little less opaque and more transparent. I'm trying to think of my opposites of opaque and transparent. So there you go. So that's what we've got. Okay. Again, like I say, it's not a slick on the surface, so it's not like pooled in it. It's just a little bit on to ensure you've got a good application. So I'm going to put these to one side so that they can dry a little while we work on this one, because I need a bit of space. I might have to move that one over there. Okay, so I decided it was going to go on this fold, wasn't I? So let's just check where that fold is, and I want it to be a little bit like that, I'm thinking. Okay, so best thing to do with this is apply a little, and don't try and apply it all, because what you'll find is, like, you put all your Mod Podge down, it'll have dried by the time you get back to the next bit. And sorry, you put it all down, by the time you stick it down, the bit that you've just recently applied will still be wet, the other bit will have dried out, and you'll need to keep doing it. It's like painting the Forth Bridge, and anybody that knows that metaphor is probably from the UK. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel this back a little bit. I'm going to put some down. And book page, again, is quite dry. It will suck up any moisture that you give it, and so it will, you know, you might need to apply more than you would do onto something like a playing card, which has a coating on it, and therefore, you know, will remain wetter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that bit there. Okay, I'm going to smooth it out as much as I can. So keeping it taut and smoothing it. Don't pull hard, it'll fall apart. Okay, and applying it as I go. Remember, if your finger becomes wet, do not go over the surface of it, you'll pull it apart. So this is why I'm swapping fingers, to be able to make sure I stick it down. Okay, any bits that you don't think there's enough glue, just peel it back a little bit before it gets stuck down properly, and then put that on. And then you can come back to this bit that you didn't glue, just peel it back, apply a little bit more glue. You might want to do it in threes if you're doing something on this side, on this scale, sorry. You might want to do it in threes, so you might want to do it like that. Put that bit down first, make sure that that's got a nice adhesion. If you're really careful, you can peel it up a little bit. If it's stuck down and you think, oh, I don't like it like that, before it dries out too much, you can peel it up a little bit. Don't try and peel it completely off. You won't have very much success. Well, you might have more success than me, but you know, I'm speaking from experience. So again, I'm just going to peel that back a little bit more, because some of the areas have got glue. Now, wherever you haven't put glue, you'll end up with like a white little pocket, a pocket of it doesn't, you know, it doesn't blend in as much. You know, it's not the end of the world. It's just the end of the napkin. So again, rubbing it down using the fingers that aren't wet. What you'll find is once you've rubbed onto it, the glue will come through the surface of it, and then it will get wet. Your finger will get wet, and that's when you have to like change to a different finger that's dry. So if you run out of fingers, you might have to borrow somebody else's. So please ask their permission first. Don't just stick people's fingers into wet glue. Okay, so there we go. And now what I can do is I can go around all of the edges and blend those in first. Okay, and this is just my personal success. This is how I do it. So when people have asked me how do you do it, this is how I do it. So again, just going around, just going over it, and as you see, as I apply glue to it, it goes from being quite opaque to you being able to see the words on the background. So this is the reason, one of the reasons why I wanted to use book page on this occasion, for like showing those people that are starting off with napkins, because you can see the results instantly. You can see how it blends in with what I'm actually talking about. So, and now I've got those on. Remember, I need to go over the surface, and I need to be gentle because this is already wet, and you don't want to make it, you don't want to saturate it and make it fall apart. It'll just turn into paper mache or papier mache, or however you say it. Papier mache. or the equivalent. The equivalent if you're, if you're French. I'm really sorry. I'm not very good at doing the accent, but I keep trying. I'm very trying. Anyway, so you're going over it. Like I say, don't slick it. Don't get it too wet. Being gentle. Short little strokes. Don't try and do the whole thing in one big stroke, because what you'll find is you'll end up dragging it and you'll drag it off the surface. Okay, so that's that bit there. Okay, so again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this to one side and I'm going to come back to these other ones. So I'm just going to put my brush to one side, put it into some water as soon as you can to stop it from drying out, but do as I say and not as I do. So this hasn't dried out yet, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed it up. Now you don't have to do this. You actually get better results if you let it to dry, leave it to dry naturally, but I'm going to speed it up so that we can talk about more in this video about it. So this is just a heat gun. You might not have one of these. This gets hot, but it doesn't blow really hard like a hairdryer. If you do use a hairdryer, be very careful, you'll blow everything away. This actually gets hotter than a hairdryer. It gets, burningly hot, so don't hover in one place. You'll just, otherwise, you'll end up with a piece of charcoal, a decoupaged piece of charcoal. Okay, so that bit's dried off now. Okay. So I'll show you this bit first. Okay, so this is now dry. Okay, I can touch this. Is quite hot actually. So, but I can touch it. It's dry, and you'll see that you'll always get a bit of a halo around it from where you've used glue. But that does, when you're applying different layers, it all kind of blends in. You don't really see it. So, so this is just onto a piece of grey board, like I say. And the reason why it buckles is because what you've done is you've wet this surface, but this surface isn't wet. So it's a bit like when you cook a steak or a piece of fish. Any part that is still has a lot of moisture will be relaxed, and any part that's is dry will start to curl up. And this bit's dry, so it's bending it this way. So my metaphor for explaining it probably isn't the best. Okay, so I'm going to go over this one and dry this one off. So if you are drying it, hold it away from the surface, otherwise what you'll end up doing is pushing the moisture through onto the back, and then it'll just be sat in its own little puddle of water. So just going to go over here, going all the way across it, making sure we get it dried out. So like I say, leave it to dry. If you leave it to dry naturally, you'll get less curling from it. Okay, so hopefully this is dry now. Yep, this is dry again, very hot. Okay, so what you can see here is it absolutely starts to go very translucent, and you can see how the edge of the napkin has kind of blended in. You could almost believe that this was part of the card, and the picture is become translucent. You can still see the picture of the clubs in the background. Okay, so you have this bit over the edge that you've like, oh, I don't want to leave that like that, what can I do? Well, you could just tear it off. Okay, if you like that kind of like just a torn edge. Remember, this is already stuck down, so it shouldn't peel away, and if it does, it's a piece of tissue paper, so you can just tear it away like this. Okay, tear the little bits off. And if you're happy with just this kind of a raw edge, like I am, I like this. I kind of make it looks like, I want somebody to see that I've put some work into it, not that I just picked up a piece of a playing card that's got something in the background. Or what you can do is you can use a piece of sandpaper. So I'm using an emery board, which is obviously designed for your fingernails, but this is a perfect size. And what you can do is you can just file, and you can see how it just drops away. Okay, so you can file it all down, then it will just drop off as you go. I need to give it a bit of a pull, and you get a much straighter edge with this finish. Okay, so entirely up to you how you want to finish it. If you want to go, you know, and some projects require different things. Some projects require you to, you know, you're going to need to make it much straighter at the edge, and other things I might prefer it a bit more organic. Okay, so that's that, and let's come back to this one, which is still not dry because obviously it got quite wet in the first place, but it's drier than it was. And again, I'm just going to go over it and see if we can get it to dry. So just holding it off the surface so that the moisture's got somewhere to go. And we're just going to dry it over all of the surface. So rather than just drying the edges, I'm drying it all over as I go now. So all the way over it, trying to get it as dry as possible. Now I might not get this one as dry as the other two because it's quite a big surface area, but it's definitely drying out a lot more than it would have done if I just left it. So is that dry? Okay, it's still a little bit tacky. It's very hot, but it's still a little bit tacky, but it's not bad at all. So there you go. And this one again shows you just how it blends in. So you can absolutely see the wording in the background. This technique just lends itself to having that kind of very vintage sort of home, you know, decorative technique. Now, so that's how my book will look, and it will kind of curl around onto the spine, which is what I wanted it to do. Like I say, you will get a bit of texture in it, and I like it. I like it because it shows that I've actually done something to it. This one you can see. Yes, you can see a little bit of the line, but you know, I think it blends in a lot better than you would do if you had a straight line. This one you kind of can't even see the edge of the napkin. To help this blend in a bit more, and also to kind of get rid of your brush strokes, this is when it's good to have a bit of bring some colour into it. So if you use something like a where is it, antique linen. So if you use a brush, now it doesn't have to be this kind of a brush, it can be just, you know, it can be a dauber. So you could use a dauber like this. I mean, this is obviously green, or you could use a makeup brush. Okay, be careful of the coloured makeup brushes. Sometimes the colour comes out of them. So I try to use the ones that are just plain white. This was, well, it was a cream colour. It doesn't look like that colour anymore. But I use that different sides for different colours. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to blend over the top of this, and this will hopefully help the glue to disappear into the background. The other thing you can do to help it to disappear into the background is to go over the whole of the surface of it with Mod Podge. So if you go over the whole of it now, well, I'll do that instead of doing the, I'll show you this. I'll show you on this one what will happen. So if you go over the whole thing now, it's dry, with some Mod Podge, you won't see that line of where you put the, where you paste it up to with your, oh, I don't know where that, there's a piece of glitter on here, I don't know where that's come from. I don't use glitter, so that's interesting. So I'm just going to put on a little bit too much, so I'm just going to paste it out. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'll just dry it a little bit. And then paste it out a bit, so that can help you get rid of the brush lines. They don't completely disappear, obviously, but like, if it's ever tried to paint a door or something, you'll know what it's like trying to paste out brush lines. Paint out brush lines, I mean, not paste out. There you go. So just go over it completely. Just be careful lift it up and be careful it doesn't get stuck to the surface. Because this has got a shiny surface, you're going to see wherever you pasted something that's matte, you're just going to see that edge. So is that dry? Yeah, that's dry enough. There you go. So you can't now see where the pasted line, so you know where we'd brushed up to be able to put our napkin on. It's just all more of one. It's not quite dry in this area, but there you go. So that's that. Okay. So then this one, now that we've dried it, you know it's blended in. You can't really see a brushed line as such, and you know it yields a good result. But remember, if you don't have Mod Podge, try something else. Most of us will, you know, have somewhere where napkins are very cheap these days. So, like, you know, don't be fooled by the Etsy prices. Look at the prices in your local supermarkets. Get a pack of napkins, share it out amongst your friends, and give it a go. And if you think that this useful has been helpful, if you think this, they're not the words, Dave, and they're not in the right order. If you think that this has been helpful to you, then maybe share it amongst your friends. Maybe you know, let them know, and if they like it, you know, share it amongst their friends, etc. Please let me know if you think it's been useful. I really want to do more how-tos, and just to, you know, showing you my techniques. So like I say, if you like it, please consider subscribing if you don't already subscribe. Really do appreciate it. If you know, want to share it and your friends want to like and subscribe, then, you know, more's the better. And you know, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know if it's been helpful to you. And you can also let me know if there's anything specifically you want me to show you how to do. Obviously, you know, if it's juggling, don't expect miracles, because I can't juggle. So if I can do it, I'll show you how to do it. Some of the things that I'm thinking of doing are doing like aging, so how to age things to make them look, you know, more vintage. Making Polaroids, which are like Polaroids, but you know, a faux Polaroid. Making specimen slides for adding interest. My take on making altered playing cards, a bit like this. So this is a giant version, but you know, different sizes. Making tags using Tim Holtz paper dolls. A whole host of things that I've kind of got whirring around in my head that I'd like to be able to show you how I do it. And you know, we can go from there. But obviously, if there's something you think, oh Dave, I'd love you to show me that, then tell me, you know, and I will, if I can do it, I will give you a video on how to do it. So anyway, you all have a lovely afternoon, morning or evening, whatever time it is with you. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate your comments, your likes, definitely appreciate your subscription, and I hope to see you in the next video. Like I say, my name is Dash of Dave, and you know, you'll see me around, and as I always say, I love you all without exception until you give me a reason not to. So don't give me a reason not to. Alright folks, thank you very much for watching me. You all take care of yourselves. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Lots of love, lots of crafty hugs, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye. Bye.